chapter, so we're going to go through exponent reviews. This is on your note page, but it's also on the front. These problems are off the front of your assignment here. And you'll notice that all the properties of exponents are also at the top of this assignment. And there's some examples down here, and then the actual problems you're going to be working out are down here. Yes?
You said yesterday that the homework was going to be due on Monday.
Okay. Did I?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Then it'll be due Monday. All right. So, here we go. My expectation, since you made it this far to Trig, that you know all these properties. Those of you who are here this summer, we spent a lot of time on exponents. So these should be a review to you. If you weren't here this summer, then they're a review from when you took algebra or 7th and 8th grade math. Okay? So it's something that you need to be familiar with. It should be a quick review, I'm hoping. So let's go through some of these problems. Number one, if you have a problem that looks like this, just something to keep in mind when you're dealing with exponents is to think about expanded form. Okay? This is 3 times a squared times, now since there's nothing in between here, so it's still another multiplication sign, those parentheses really don't mean anything, so we could drop them. Whoever is the clicker, quit being a clicker. Okay? 3 times a squared times 4 times a to the 6th. All right? So, when you're multiplying, the commutative property of multiplication says you can multiply in any order. You can move things around. So really what I have is 3 times 4 times a squared times a to the 6th. Couple these, that's 12. A squared, now if you're not familiar with how to deal with that, when you're multiplying it by this, think about what a squared means. A squared is the same thing as a times a. So this part becomes that, and then a to the 6th, if you think about what that means, it's a times a times a times a times a times a. Holy moly, okay? All right? So we have 12 times all these a's. Now that many a's is how many a's? 8. So really that's 12 times a to the 8th. So the shortcut, tell your neighbor what the shortcut is to go from here to here. Very good. So I heard it's add the exponents. When you multiply, you add the exponents. If they have the same base, you keep the base, add the 2 and 6. All right. Final answer, 12a to the 8th. Questions there? Yes?
Only when you multiply, right?
Correct. All right. Other questions? Okay, this 2 right here, let's think about what it means. It means you are squaring everything, everything inside the parentheses. So it means you have 2 of those. That's what that 2 means. You have 2 sets. And once again, there's a multiplication in between everything here. So really, the parentheses, do they mean anything? No. We can drop the parentheses and write it out like this. And I'll tell you, for students that struggle with these, just setting in those little dots in between help out. Those are multiplication symbols. Each one of those are a different piece. Commutative property of multiplication, you can move things around. So if I put my numbers by my numbers, my x's by my x's, and my y's by my y's, I now really have 4 to the 2nd power. I have x cubed to the 2nd power. Oops, not to the 6th power, to the 2nd power. And I also have y to the 5th to the 2nd power. Now many of you are like, why are you writing it like that? 4 squared is 16. X cubed times x cubed is x to the... Go back up here. This is x to the 6th. We just did that on over here. That's x to the 6th, which would imply that this is, how do you do a power outside parentheses? multiply them. Okay, and this is y to the 10th, which is 5 times 2, or y to the 10th. 6x to the 6th, y to the 10th. This is called a power to a power. Don't confuse it with what this is. Here you're adding. Here you're multiplying. Make sense? Questions? All right, moving on. Number 5. 8a to the 5th, 2a squared. When you're dividing, when you're multiplying, you're adding. When you're dividing, you're subtracting. So we'll divide the 8 by 2, which is 4. And a to the 5th and a to the 2nd is a to the 5 minus 2. Notice top minus bottom. Okay, which is really 4a to the 3rd. Now, a lot of times I like to say, where do I have more a's, on top or bottom? I have more a's on top, which means my a is going to end up on top. Now, some of you will go, well, there's no bottom here. Well, there is. It's just the bottom is, it's 1. That becomes 1, and that becomes 4. That cancels, and that becomes 3. Okay, so really you could look at it like that. That's 4a cubed over 1, which we write as 4a cubed. Okay, questions there? Tell your neighbor what anything to the 0 power is.
1.
Okay, so if you're raising all this mess to the 0 power, it is 1. It is 1. So we have 1 on top. On bottom, we have 2xy to the 5th. There's nothing to put together down here. There's nothing to cancel up top, so our answer is 1 over 2xy to the 5th. Yeah, man. Oh, questions there? Moving on, number 8. Turn her over. It's again power to a power. Squared. What's the quick way? We multiply. We multiply it by everything in there. Now remember, that squared means I actually have 3x squared over 2 times 3x squared over 2. Now, many of you are very good with multiplying fractions. You know you go numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. I had students last period go, don't you cross multiply? No, you don't cross multiply. That's with a proportion. This is fractions. Just multiply straight across, which is the same. When I say 3 times 3, the same as just bringing that in and squaring it. That's 9. And x squared squared is x to the 4th, or 2 times 2. And 2 squared is 4. So the shortcut, rather than writing out an expanded form, which you can always do, that's fine if you're struggling with it, the shortcut is to just bring it into each piece and jump right to the answer there. Yes?
So do you simplify that? No.
No, 9 and 4, there's nothing that goes into both 9 and 4 other than 1.
So you cannot take like a root because okay.
If we took, there's no root, it's not asking for a root, right? We can't just impose it. If it said that equals y squared, then you could take the root, but it's not an equation. Good question. Other questions? Negative exponents. We bring the negative 2 in. Now there are multiple ways to solve these problems. I am going to get rid of parentheses first, just like I would try to do in any other problem. It goes to each thing in there. Notice I put the little multiplication sign. So 2 to the negative 2nd, I'm just going to write it like that. R to the negative 1 times negative 2, which is 2. S to the 2 times negative 2, or negative 4. And t to the, 0 times negative 2 is 0, all over 2 RS. Oops, not power of S, excuse me. S. What is the power on the 2 right here? 1. What's the power on the r? And what's the power on the s? 1. If there's no power shown, it's 1. Now, if I have a first power here and a negative fourth up there, I really have negative 4 minus 1, or 2 minus 1, or negative 2 minus 1. So if I write this out now, just in this form, 2 to the negative second minus 1, r to the second minus 1, s to the negative fourth minus 1, and t to the 0, which is just 1. So we don't even have to worry about that anymore because we're now multiplying by 1. That piece we don't even have to deal with anymore. This whole thing becomes 2 to the negative first, r to the first, s to the negative fifth. Question?
On the 2, negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3.
Negative 2 minus 1. Oh, that is negative 3. Thank you for pointing that out. That's some tough math I messed up on. Okay. Are we done? We're not done. Josie, why am I not done? Good. You have negative exponents. You have to have positive exponents. We don't leave them as negative, so we make it into a fraction. And down here we have a 1, which we don't, that's just kind of holding. The negatives move down, and then they become positives. Those exponents become positive. How many remember doing that now? It's been a while for some of you, so when I bring that down, I'm left with r on top. R to the first is r. On the bottom, the 2 goes down and becomes now positive third. And s goes down and becomes positive 5. We're almost done. What do I need to evaluate? Cube 2 is 8. Now, there are other ways to get to that answer. That was one method. Okay. I will go through 13 and 14 here in a minute. Questions on 11? Yeah?
So where exactly did the denominator go with the 2 to the first, r to the first, s to the first? Yeah.
Right here?
Yeah.
I subtracted 2. I wrote it here. This is just 2 to the negative first. Or I subtracted that 1 from there. So if it's on the bottom, you take whatever, if the base is the same, and you subtract whatever this power is from that power. That's where it went. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want you going ahead and working. Okay, number 13. X to the fourth, x to the negative second, x to the negative fifth. First thing I'm doing is I'm simplifying either side of the fraction. Now, there are multiple ways to do this. This is the way I would approach it, and I might approach it differently next time I do it. But usually I simplify the top first. That becomes 4 plus negative 2, or x squared. And now I have x to the negative fifth on the bottom still. Okay? So that means when I'm putting those two pieces together, that is x squared minus negative 5. Now I'm subtracting the bottom. Minus negative 5 is really plus. Now some of you would just say, well, don't you just move this up because it's negative? Yeah, if it's a negative and it's on the bottom, it goes up and becomes positive. That's where that x to the fifth became. It means we have x to the seventh. Okay, questions on that one? I'll go through other questions here in a minute, but let's cover 17 real quick. Negative exponent out. Bring it in. That's p to the negative fourth, q to the negative second. Now, since those are both negative, what do we do? Bring it to the bottom, which means we'd have to put in a bottom, right? Put in a basement there. This piece drops down. This piece drops down. I'm left with, on the bottom, p to the fourth and q to the second. What's on top?
1.
1. Right. Okay. Now, you guys have started your assignment. Are there questions that have arose that you're not sure what to do? Go ahead, Colt.
Number number 9. I'm just kind of debating.
This one?
Actually, no, I think I got it now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Other questions? Yeah?
How much of this are we doing?
You're doing all of it right now. Yeah. Pretty good stuff. Like the whole. You can skip. Well, I'll let you skip 25 on this side. I know. It scared you had words anyway. But yes, Lily.
So our assignment, do we have to do like this example part too?
You're doing 1 through 24 here.
Okay.
And so 1 through 24 on this side. And on the back, 1 through 32 on the back. It's not as hard as it looks. Okay?